Your son won't fit in at SeaWorld. My sister messaged, our kids planned this for months. Yours just doesn't belong. My son delivers newspapers each dawn. Every cent he saves. I answered, I get it. Then I reserved us the ultimate VIP experience. $25,000. When they saw. The screen glowed with words that felt like a punch to the gut, a digital decree delivered just as the morning light barely kissed the kitchen counter. Your son won't fit in at SeaWorld. Ours just doesn't belong. Maybe next time. The coffee maker gurgled its oblivious song behind me, but all I could hear was the metallic clang of a door slamming shut in my son's face. My sister, Vanessa, had never been subtle, but this felt like a new low, a deliberate cruelty aimed right at Lucas. He'd lived and breathed SeaWorld for weeks, a whirlwind of orca facts and dolphin trivia, his small hands carefully placing every newspaper delivery dollar into a jar labeled SeaWorld Fund in his messy, 10-year-old script. My chest tightened, a cold knot forming right beneath my sternum. I reread the message, the stark white text on the dark background mocking his earnest efforts. Vanessa's twins, Brittany and Chase, 12 years old and cloaked in a casual snobbery that blossomed in their expensive private school, had apparently rendered judgment. They didn't want Lucas. He didn't fit. Vanessa, married to a corporate attorney named Trevor Ashford, a man whose watch probably cost more than our family's monthly expenses, was simply echoing her children's elite pronouncements. I typed 2 words back, my fingers moving with a surprising steadiness, I get it. No pleading, no explanations about Lucas's dedication, no begging. Just those 2 words, a dry, almost defiant acceptance. I knew she expected a desperate reply, a tearful justification. Instead, I set my phone down, its weight suddenly immense, and focused on making the school sandwiches, the mundane act a stark contrast to the earthquake rumbling inside me. Lucas appeared then, a small, sleepy figure framed in the kitchen doorway. He was already in his newspaper delivery uniform, jeans, sneakers, and the neon safety vest I insisted on. His dark hair was a wild mop, and his eyes, though still heavy with sleep, held that familiar spark of early morning determination. Morning, man, he mumbled, reaching for his backpack. Morning, sweetheart. How many houses today? I asked, my voice betraying none of the turmoil. 47, he answered, beaming. Mr. Patterson added his address yesterday, so I've got 1 extra. The pride in his voice was palpable, the kind of quiet satisfaction you see in someone who genuinely loves their work. For Lucas, this paper route wasn't just about pocket money anymore, it was a testament to his responsibility, a tangible measure of his growing independence. He'd started 6 months ago, always reliable, always ensuring the papers stayed dry, even in the rain, thanks to his ingenious plastic bag system. Neighbors loved him, often leaving tips alongside their morning coffee. That's great, I managed, a lump forming in my throat. You're doing an amazing job. He nodded, accepting the praise with a slight shrug. Thanks. I've saved $217 total, but I spent some on new bike tires and that science book I wanted. Vanessa said the SeaWorld tickets are about $60, right? I've got $53 in my special jar just for that. The words hit me like a physical blow, my stomach clenching. He was so close, so full of innocent expectation. How could I tell him? How could I crush that burgeoning hope? His cousins, his own flesh and blood, had effectively voted him off the island, deemed him unworthy. We'll talk about it later, okay? You should get going before it gets too late. I watched him through the window, a tiny, determined silhouette pedaling his bike down the street, his neon vest glowing faintly in the pre-dawn gloom. He worked harder than most adults I knew, and he did it without a single complaint. Here's the thing, watching him, my mind began to race, calculating. I picked up my phone again, opening my banking app. The numbers staring back at me were not impressive for daily living, $3,847 in checking, another $12,000 in savings, meticulously built over years as an emergency fund. As a medical transcriptionist, I made decent money, but comfortable for us meant constant budgeting, careful choices, and plenty of second-hand finds. But there was another account, one I rarely touched, one most people didn't even know existed. 5 years prior, my father, a quiet mechanical engineer who lived modestly but well, had passed away unexpectedly. He'd left me $180,000, his life insurance and retirement savings combined. That money had sat in a separate investment account, growing steadily. It was Lucas's college fund, maybe a house down payment someday. I'd never touched it for anything frivolous, every purchase weighed, every expense justified. But sitting there, in my quiet kitchen, picturing Lucas on his bike, delivering papers while Vanessa's kids slept in their climate-controlled bedrooms, something profound shifted within me. Educational value 1, this dynamic wasn't new. It was a pattern, a deeply ingrained family script. From childhood, Vanessa had been the golden child, prettier, more social, better at sports. Our mother, Claudia, openly favored her, consistently making excuses for Vanessa's selfish behavior, framing my sensitivity as a flaw rather than a natural reaction. This parental favoritism, a deeply damaging psychological dynamic, often leads to one child feeling inherently superior and entitled, while the other struggles with a pervasive sense of inadequacy, constantly striving for validation that rarely comes. It creates a skewed perception of worth within the family unit that can persist for decades. I'm not proud of this, but a cold, hard determination began to set in. Vanessa had always gotten the praise, the attention, the assumption that her life choices were superior. Her kids attended elite schools, took violin lessons, vacationed in Switzerland. Lucas delivered newspapers at dawn and saw a trip to SeaWorld as the adventure of a lifetime. The contrast was stark, and I was tired of standing idly by. I opened my laptop and started researching. SeaWorld San Diego. VIP experiences. I scrolled past the basic packages. If we were doing this, we were doing it properly. What I found buried in their premium offerings made me pause, the ultimate VIP experience. Private tour guide, behind-the-scenes access, front-row seating, exclusive meet and greets, gourmet lunch, special animal interaction programs. The price tag made my breath catch, $25,000. But that was only the beginning of the nightmare, or, perhaps, the awakening. Because here's the thing, I wasn't just booking for Lucas and me. My phone became an extension of my arm as I started making calls. First, Michelle Rodriguez, my best friend from college. She had 2 kids Lucas's age, and they lived paycheck to paycheck. A trip like this was a pipe dream. "Are you serious?" she asked, her voice incredulous when I explained. "You're really offering to pay for everything?" "Completely serious," I assured her, "flights, hotel, the works. Lucas needs friends there, and I know your kids would have a blast." Next, my cousin Derek. A single father, raising his 8-year-old daughter Emma after his wife's tragic death 3 years prior. Derek worked construction, barely scraping by. Emma was a sweet kid who'd seen too much hardship. "I don't know what to say," Derek told me, his voice thick with emotion. "Emma talks about Lucas all the time. This would mean everything to her." Finally, Mrs. Patterson, the elderly woman from Lucas's paper route. She'd mentioned her 9-year-old grandson, Tyler, was visiting for the summer, his parents embroiled in a difficult divorce. "He could use some fun," she'd sighed, a wistful note in her voice. I arranged everything. 6 children in total, Lucas, Michelle's Brandon and Sophia, Emma, and Tyler. Plus myself, Michelle, Derek, and Mrs. Patterson as chaperones. I booked first-class flights, a suite at the Marriott Marquis overlooking the bay, and that ultimate VIP experience package, the kind of access Vanessa's family would never even know existed. The total came to just over $47,000, factoring in meals, transportation, and spending money for the kids. I transferred the amount from my investment account without a moment's hesitation. Then, I waited. What I found next changed everything. Vanessa, true to form, posted incessantly about their SeaWorld trip. Photos of the twins in designer outfits, videos of them complaining about the heat, snide comments about the basic crowds. Trevor, boat shoes and polo shirt, looking vaguely annoyed by his luxurious surroundings. They went on a Wednesday. We went on Saturday. I posted nothing. No announcements, no hints, not a single whisper of our plans. When Vanessa texted, asking how Lucas was handling not being included, I simply replied, "He's fine." Our trip began the moment we arrived at the airport. Lucas's eyes went wide, disbelieving, when I led our group to the first-class check-in counter. "Mom," he whispered, tugging on my sleeve, "I think we're in the wrong line." A small smile touched my lips. "We're exactly where we need to be," I told him. On the plane, the kids couldn't stop giggling as flight attendants brought them warm cookies and personal entertainment screens. Emma, exhausted but content, fell asleep with her head on Derek's shoulder, a peaceful smile gracing her lips. Tyler, still a bit shell-shocked, kept glancing around as if expecting someone to tell him this was all a mistake. The hotel suite was bigger than my entire apartment, with 3 bedrooms and a living area that echoed with excited shouts. Mrs. Patterson settled into an armchair by the window, tears in her eyes. "I've never stayed anywhere this nice," she said softly, almost to herself. Saturday morning arrived with clear blue skies, a perfect California day. Our private tour guide, Amanda, a marine biologist in an official SeaWorld uniform, met us at a VIP entrance, far from the main crowds. She knelt to Lucas's level, her smile genuine. "You must be Lucas," she said. "I heard you've been studying orcas. How would you like to help prepare their breakfast?" His face lit up in a way I'd never seen before, a pure, unadulterated joy. "Really? I can do that." "Absolutely. That's our first stop." What followed was 8 hours of experiences that felt nothing short of magical. The kids stood in the killer whale kitchen, learning about marine mammal care and nutrition. They touched stingrays in a private pool, absorbing lessons about conservation. During the orca show, we sat in a reserved section, so close that the splash zone truly delivered on its promise. But the real moment, the one that etched itself into my memory, came during the dolphin encounter. Amanda led us to a restricted training area, a space typically reserved for staff only. Our package included a 45-minute session with 2 dolphins, Star and Luna. The kids, trembling with excitement, gave hand signals, fed fish, and even touched the sleek, powerful bodies under the trainer's watchful eyes. Lucas was practically vibrating. "Mom, they're so smart," he kept exclaiming. "Did you see how Luna knew exactly what I was asking her to do?" Emma, who had been so quiet, started crying happy tears when a dolphin playfully splashed her. Brandon and Sophia kept high-fiving. Tyler, the quietest of them all, asked approximately 800 questions, and the trainers, with endless patience and genuine enthusiasm, answered every single one. Educational value too, this deliberate choice to invest in an extraordinary experience, not just for Lucas but for other children who had faced hardship or lacked opportunities, goes beyond mere financial outlay. Psychologically, it's a powerful act of assertive boundary setting and validation. Instead of internalizing the insult and allowing Lucas to feel less than, the narrator proactively chose to demonstrate his inherent worth through action. This kind of investment, often viewed as spiteful by outsiders, was, in fact, an investment in his emotional well-being and a direct counter to the exclusionary behavior he experienced, reinforcing his sense of belonging with those who truly valued him. It's a testament to the profound impact of showing up for a child, physically and emotionally, especially when their self-esteem is under attack. Meanwhile, I took photos. Lots of photos. Kids laughing, dolphins jumping, Amanda explaining complex marine biology concepts that soared over their heads but felt important nonetheless. Mrs. Patterson, her hand tightly clasped around Tyler's, as he tentatively approached the pool edge. Derek, his arm around Emma, both of them beaming. And then, I did something I rarely did, I posted exactly one photo to social media. It was a shot of all 6 kids, standing in front of the iconic Shamu Stadium sign, proudly wearing the matching VIP lanyards Amanda had given them. Lucas, centered, clutching a plush orca that had cost $40 in the gift shop, money I'd spent without a second thought. The caption read, "Sometimes the best family isn't the one you're born into." #SeaWorld #making memories. I tagged the location and hit post. 17 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Vanessa. "What the hell is this?" she demanded, her voice tight with barely controlled rage. "You took Lucas to SeaWorld anyway." I was eating a gourmet sandwich in our private cabana, while the kids, buzzing with adrenaline, compared their morning's favorite moments. "I did," I replied calmly, my voice flat, devoid of emotion. "After I specifically told you he couldn't come with us. You said he wouldn't fit in with your family," I countered, my resolve hardening. "So I made sure he fit in with people who actually appreciate him." "This is ridiculous. Do you have any idea how much you embarrass me? My friends saw your post. They're asking why we didn't do the VIP experience." "Maybe," I said, a deliberate chill entering my voice, "because you were too busy teaching your children to exclude their cousin." Vanessa sputtered, "That's not. Brittany and Chase just thought Lucas might feel uncomfortable around their friends." "Right," I scoffed, the irony bitter in my mouth. "Trying to be considerate by telling a 10-year-old boy who delivers newspapers at dawn to save money that he doesn't belong. Yeah, that's really considerate. You always do this," she snapped. "You always play the victim and make everything about how hard your life is. Some of us actually work for what we have instead of what?" I cut her off, my voice dangerously quiet. "Marrying rich? Because that's your big accomplishment, Vanessa. You found a guy with money, and now you act like you built an empire." The line went silent for a moment, thick with unspoken accusations. When she spoke again, her voice was ice. "Mom's going to hear about this." "I'm sure she will," I said, a faint smile touching my lips. "Tell her I said hi." I hung up and returned to the table, where Lucas was meticulously explaining the difference between orcas and dolphins to Tyler, with the authority of someone who had just spent exactly 3 hours with marine animals. Mom called that evening, while the kids were sprawled in the hotel suite's living room, absorbed in a movie. Vanessa is very upset, Mom began, no greeting, no pleasantries, just the familiar preamble to a lecture. I imagine she is. She says you spent an obscene amount of money just to show off. I closed my eyes briefly, composing myself. I spent money making sure my son and his friends had an incredible experience. If that upsets Vanessa, she can examine why. You've always been jealous of your sister, Mom said, falling into her familiar, well-worn script. Ever since you were children, you couldn't stand to see her happy. This was the crux of their dynamic, the perpetual narrative that framed me as the bitter, lesser sibling. This has nothing to do with jealousy, Mom. Vanessa excluded Lucas from a family trip because their kids decided he wasn't good enough. I'm not going to let him think that's acceptable. The twins are going through a phase, she dismissed. They wanted time with their school friends. That's normal at their age. Then she could have said that, I retorted, my patience wearing thin. Instead of telling me Lucas doesn't belong. She could have planned a different trip. She could have done literally anything except make a 10-year-old feel worthless. Mom sighed dramatically, a practiced sound of maternal exasperation. You're being oversensitive, as usual. Vanessa was trying to make things easier for everyone. You took it personally and created this whole situation. I created this situation by taking my son on vacation. By rubbing Vanessa's nose in it with that post. By spending money you probably don't have just to prove a point. I almost laughed, a dry, humorless sound. You have no idea what I have or don't have, Mom. You've never bothered to ask. Well, I'm asking you now to apologize to your sister. This family doesn't need more drama. The demand hung in the air, heavy and familiar. I'm not apologizing for giving Lucas a good experience. If Vanessa wants an apology, she should start by explaining to Lucas why he wasn't welcome on her trip. He's 10. He wouldn't even understand. He's 10, and he understood perfectly when I had to tell him his cousins didn't want him there. He cried in his room for an hour. But sure, Mom. Let's protect Vanessa's feelings instead. She made a disgusted sound. I don't know what's gotten into you. This isn't like you at all. Maybe it should have been like me all along, I said quietly, and ended the call, silencing my phone. Through the doorway, I could see Lucas sprawled on the carpet with the other kids, pointing at the TV and laughing. He looked happy. He looked like a kid who'd spent the day being treated like he mattered. That, I thought, was worth every single penny. The rest of the weekend passed in a blur of joyful activities. Sunday included a second day at SeaWorld, revisiting favorite exhibits. Amanda, our amazing guide, even arranged for Lucas to sit in on a sea lion training session, his face, pure, unfiltered joy, as he blew the whistle during a trick demonstration, a moment I captured on video. We flew home Monday afternoon. At the airport, Mrs. Patterson pulled me aside while the kids were absorbed in a bookstore. I need you to understand something, she said softly, her eyes glistening. My grandson's father hasn't called him once since he arrived. Not once. His mother is so wrapped up in the divorce that Tyler feels invisible. This weekend gave him something to hold on to. You gave all these children that. They deserved it, I said simply. Not everyone would see it that way. Most people would say you spent too much, that you were being spiteful. A small, wry smile touched my lips. Maybe I was a little spiteful, I admitted. But Lucas deserved to feel special. They all did. She hugged me then, this woman I barely knew beyond polite hellos during newspaper deliveries. You're a good mother. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise. The backlash, when it came, was gradual. Vanessa stopped speaking to me entirely, blocking my number and social media. Mom called periodically, delivering guilt trips about tearing the family apart. Some of Vanessa's friends, women I barely knew, sent passive-aggressive messages about fiscal responsibility and proper values. I ignored all of it. What I couldn't ignore was the subtle, profound change in Lucas. He returned to his paper route with renewed energy, proudly showing pictures to customers. He started a journal, filling pages with drawings and facts about marine biology, questions he wanted to research. One evening, about 2 weeks after we returned, he came into the kitchen while I was cooking dinner. Mom, can I ask you something? Of course, sweetheart. Did Aunt Vanessa really say I couldn't go on their trip because I'm not rich like Brittany and Chase? My hand stilled on the knife. I'd been dreading this question. Where did you hear that? I heard you on the phone with Grandma. I wasn't trying to listen, but my door was open. I set the knife down, turning to face him fully. Aunt Vanessa made a choice about who she wanted on her trip. That choice had nothing to do with your worth as a person, and everything to do with her priorities. He considered this, his brow furrowed. She thinks I'm not good enough. My heart ached for him. Some people, I said carefully, measure worth by the wrong things. Money, status, appearances. But you know what actually matters. Character, kindness, hard work. You have all of those in abundance. Educational value 3, this conversation with Lucas highlights the crucial difference between extrinsic validation and intrinsic worth. Vanessa and her children operated from a place of extrinsic validation, where worth is derived from external factors like wealth, social standing, or superficial appearances. Lucas, through his hard work and genuine interests, embodied intrinsic worth. Helping children understand that their value isn't dependent on external approval or material possessions is fundamental to building resilience and self-esteem. It teaches them that while some people may choose to measure others by flawed metrics, their true value lies in who they are as individuals. He pondered my words. Is that why you took us on the VIP trip? To prove I am good enough? The question was so direct, so honest. I took you on that trip, I explained, because you've been working hard and talking about SeaWorld for months. I wanted you to have an amazing experience. The VIP part was just to ensure everything was perfect. But it cost a lot of money, right? I saw the prices online. Even the regular tickets are expensive, and we did all the special stuff. There was no point in lying to him. Lucas was smart, observant. It cost more than a regular trip would have. Yes. Are we going to be okay? Like, money-wise? The question broke my heart a little. 10 years old, and he was worrying about finances. We're going to be absolutely fine, I reassured him, pulling him into a hug. I have savings for situations exactly like this. That money was meant to be used for important things, and making sure you had that experience was important to me. More important than college savings. I have separate money for your college. This came from a different account, money. Your grandfather left me specifically to use for our family. He would have loved knowing it gave you those memories. Lucas nodded slowly, processing. Then he said something that genuinely surprised me. Brittany and Chase didn't look very happy in Aunt Vanessa's pictures. What do you mean? In all the photos she posted, they just looked kind of bored. Like they were there but didn't really care. But in our pictures, everyone's smiling for real. Emma was laughing so hard when that dolphin splashed her. Tyler kept saying it was the best day of his life. He was right. Scrolling back through Vanessa's posts, her kids did look disengaged, going through the motions. Our pictures showed something different, authentic happiness, real connection. Sometimes, I said carefully, the best experiences aren't the ones that look impressive to other people. They're the ones that actually make you feel something. I felt something, Lucas said firmly. I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. 3 months passed. Vanessa's silence continued, which honestly felt more peaceful than our previous relationship had been. Mom eventually stopped calling about the situation, though she still made pointed comments during occasional family gatherings about certain people causing unnecessary conflict. I didn't care. Lucas was thriving. His grades improved, especially in science, biology, and conservation. He started volunteering at a local animal shelter on weekends. His paper route continued, but now his savings went toward a different goal. He wanted to visit the Monterey Bay Aquarium next. They have jellies, he explained seriously. Like, a whole exhibition of jellyfish. And sea otters. We have to go, Mom. We'll plan something, I promised. Little did I know, this was only the beginning of an entirely new chapter. Derek called me in late November. I don't know if you remember, but Emma's birthday is coming up. She wants to do something ocean-themed because she can't stop thinking about the dolphins. Would you? I mean, I know it's a lot to ask, but would you consider coming to her party? You and Lucas? She specifically requested you both. Of course, we'll come, I told him. Just tell me when and where. The party was at a community center, decorated with blue streamers and cardboard cutouts of sea creatures. Emma wore a dolphin costume she'd apparently begged for, and her smile when she saw Lucas arrive was worth everything. Michelle and her kids showed up too. Brandon had started a marine conservation club at his middle school, inspired by the trainers we'd met. Sophia had written an A+ school report about orcas. Mrs. Patterson brought Tyler, who was visiting again. His parents' divorce had finalized, leaving him caught in the emotional crossfire, but he seemed lighter, more comfortable in his own skin. He and Lucas picked up their friendship as if no time had passed. Watching these kids interact, seeing the bonds they'd formed, I realized something profound. Vanessa had actually done me a favor by excluding Lucas. If she'd included him on that original trip, he would have spent the day feeling lesser than, watching her kids make him feel small. Instead, he'd had an experience surrounded by people who valued him, who celebrated his interests, who treated him like he belonged. That was worth infinitely more than a regular family trip would have been. Christmas approached, bringing the annual family gathering at Mom's house. I debated attending, but Lucas wanted to see his grandfather, Raymond, and our extended relatives. Plus, I wasn't going to let Vanessa's disapproval dictate my life. The gathering was predictably awkward. Vanessa arrived with Trevor and the twins, all in matching designer outfits that likely cost more than my car payment. She ignored me completely, making a show of greeting everyone else warmly. The twins, however, surprised me. Brittany approached Lucas while the adults were busy in the kitchen. "Hey," she said quietly. "I saw your posts about SeaWorld. It looked really fun." Lucas glanced at me, uncertain. I nodded encouragingly. "It was amazing," he told her, his voice brimming with enthusiasm. "We got to feed dolphins and learn about orca training. The tour guide was a real marine biologist." "That's cool," she admitted. "I like dolphins." She hesitated, then added, "I'm sorry we didn't invite you on our trip. Mom said it was because we wanted to go with school friends, but honestly, Chase and I were the only kids from school who went. It was mostly just us being bored." This apology clearly hadn't been coached by Vanessa, who would never allow such an admission. This was Brittany, operating independently, perhaps recognizing the wrongness of the situation. "It's okay," Lucas said generously. "I had fun on my trip." "I could tell from the pictures," she replied. "You looked really happy." Later, I overheard Chase talking to his father about marine biology careers, mentioning something Lucas had posted on Instagram about conservation work. Trevor was half listening, scrolling through his phone, but Chase seemed genuinely interested. Vanessa noticed these interactions. I watched her face tighten as she observed her children engaging with Lucas. She said something sharp to Brittany that I couldn't hear, but Brittany just shrugged and continued her conversation. The power dynamic had shifted. Lucas was no longer the cousin who didn't measure up. He was the kid who'd had an incredible adventure, who knew things about marine life, who'd been treated like a VIP. Vanessa's children could sense that, even if their mother refused to acknowledge it. Before we left, Raymond pulled me aside. My father had always been a quiet presence, observing more than speaking. But when he did talk, it meant something. "I heard about the SeaWorld situation," he said, his gaze steady. "I figured you would. Your mother thinks you were spiteful. Vanessa thinks you were showing off." He paused, studying my face. "I think you were being a good mother." Coming from him, that meant everything. "Thank you, Dad. That money from your grandfather," he continued, "he left it to you specifically because he knew you'd use it wisely. Not for status, not for appearances, for things that actually matter. You honored his memory well." I hugged him, biting back tears. "I just wanted Lucas to know he's valued." "He knows," Raymond affirmed. "Anyone can see that." Driving home that evening, Lucas was quiet in the back seat. "Finally," he said, "Brittany told me she wished she'd been on our trip instead of theirs." "Really?" "Yeah. She said their tour guide was just some college kid who didn't really know anything, and they mostly just waited in long lines. She asked if we could all go to the aquarium together sometime." "What did you tell her?" "I said, maybe. Is that okay?" "That's completely okay," I said, my heart swelling a little. "The door is always open for people who want to make things right." He nodded, satisfied, and returned to looking out the window. The new year brought unexpected developments. Vanessa's marriage, which had always seemed perfect from the outside, started showing cracks. Trevor, it turned out, had been having an affair with a paralegal from his firm, a messy revelation that came out when the paralegal's boyfriend found incriminating texts and contacted Vanessa directly. Mom called me about it, her voice shaking. "Vanessa is devastated. She's talking about divorce. The twins are so upset." "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, and I genuinely was. Whatever issues existed between Vanessa and me, I didn't want her to suffer this kind of pain. She needs family right now. Could you maybe reach out? Let her know you're there for her. "Mom, she blocked my number, remember? She made it very clear she doesn't want contact with me." That was different. This is serious. My son being excluded was serious, too. But Vanessa didn't see it that way. Mom sighed, frustrated. "Why do you have to be so stubborn? Can't you just be the bigger person? I am being the bigger person, I stated, my voice firm, by not pointing out that Vanessa's marriage problems don't erase how she treated Lucas. If she wants support, she knows where to find me. But I'm not going to chase after someone who spent months making it clear I'm not welcome in her life. The conversation ended tensely, but I stood my ground. Vanessa had made choices. She could make the choice to reach out if she wanted reconciliation. 2 weeks later, she did. The text arrived late on a Tuesday night, "Can we talk?" I waited until morning to respond, "I'm available Thursday after 3 p.m. We met at a coffee shop halfway between our neighborhoods. Vanessa looked different, less polished. Her hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, not her usual styled waves. She'd lost weight, and dark circles shadowed her eyes. "Thank you for meeting me," she said quietly. "Of course." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then Vanessa said, "I've been thinking about SeaWorld a lot." "Okay. Not just the trip itself, but everything that happened. How I handled it, what I said about Lucas." She wrapped both hands around her coffee cup, her knuckles white. "I was wrong." The admission surprised me, a stark contrast to her usual defensiveness. "What changed your mind?" "Honestly, watching my marriage fall apart and realizing Trevor is exactly the kind of person I raised my kids to be. Status-obsessed, image-focused, willing to discard people when they're inconvenient." Her voice cracked slightly. "The twins have been talking about your trip for months. They ask why they can't do fun things like that, why our vacation felt boring, and I realized I taught them to value all the wrong things." "Vanessa, let me finish, please." She took a shaky breath. "When you posted those pictures of Lucas looking so happy, surrounded by kids who genuinely cared about him, I felt jealous. Not because of the VIP experience, but because my kids don't have friendships like that. They have classmates they compete with, kids they try to impress, but they don't have real friends who light up when they're around." I let her words settle between us, the aroma of coffee filling the quiet space. "I excluded Lucas because I thought he'd make us look bad," Vanessa continued. "Because he delivers papers and wears second-hand clothes and doesn't fit the image I wanted to project. And in doing that, I denied my own children the chance to connect with their cousin, to learn what actually matters in life. Lucas would still love to have a relationship with Brittany and Chase," I said carefully. "He talks about them sometimes. Wonders what they're up to. They ask about him, too. Especially now, when everything feels uncertain." She met my eyes. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness after how I acted, but I'm asking if we can start over. Not pretend nothing happened, but actually address it and move forward. What does that look like to you?" I asked, testing the waters. "I want to apologize to Lucas directly. I want my kids to understand why what happened was wrong. And I want to work on being the kind of person, the kind of mother who values people for who they are instead of what they have." We talked for 2 hours. Vanessa explained the full scope of her marital problems, and I, in turn, shared details about the investment account and Dad's inheritance that I'd never told her about. She'd assumed I'd gone into debt for the SeaWorld trip, which had added another layer of resentment. Learning the truth seemed to shift something in her understanding. "You could have rubbed it in my face," she said, a faint smile playing on her lips. "Posted about the money, made it clear you had resources I didn't know about. But you didn't, because that wasn't the point. The point was Lucas having a good experience." She shook her head slightly. "He's a great kid. I've been too caught up in my own stuff to see that clearly." Before we parted, Vanessa asked if Lucas might want to attend Brittany's upcoming birthday party, a small gathering at their house, family only. "Nothing fancy," she promised. "Just cake and games." But the twins specifically asked if he could come. "I'll ask him," I agreed. Lucas said yes immediately. The party happened on a Saturday afternoon, and I watched carefully as my son interacted with his cousins. They'd set up a video game tournament, something Lucas had mentioned enjoying. Brittany had researched ocean conservation organizations, and for party favors, she handed out small donation certificates to various marine charities made in each guest's name. It was thoughtful in a way I hadn't expected from her. During cake, Chase asked Lucas about his paper route, genuinely curious about the logistics and his money management. Lucas explained his saving system, how he budgeted for different goals, how he'd started investing small amounts with my help. "That's actually really smart," Chase said, sounding impressed. "I just spend my allowance on whatever." "Maybe you could start saving for something," Lucas suggested. "It feels good to work toward a goal." Watching them interact like actual family, seeing Vanessa observe her children learning from their cousin, felt like a corner had been turned. Not everything was fixed. Trevor's betrayal still hung over Vanessa's household, and years of dysfunction between us couldn't be erased by one conversation. But it was a beginning. Spring arrived with unexpected news. Michelle called to say her company was transferring her to Seattle. I hate to move the kids, she told me, but the promotion is too good to pass up. Brandon and Sophia are disappointed about leaving their friends. They'll make new friends, I assured her. And you'll visit. Plus, Lucas can keep in touch with them online. He's such a good influence on them. Brandon's actually talking about marine biology as a potential career because of that SeaWorld trip. That's wild. After we hung up, I reflected on how one decision, one expensive, possibly excessive decision, had created ripple effects I never could have anticipated. Lucas had found confidence. Emma had a core memory to sustain her through her father's grief. Tyler had experienced stability and joy during a chaotic time. Brandon had discovered a career interest. Sophia had excelled academically, and Vanessa had been forced to confront her values. The money itself didn't matter. Dad's inheritance had been meant for our family's well-being, and nothing had served Lucas's well-being better than showing him he was worth celebrating exactly as he was. Lucas's 11th birthday approached in June. He'd requested a simple party, just close friends and family, maybe at a local park. No elaborate themes, no expensive entertainment, just people he cared about spending time together. Are you sure? I asked. We could do something bigger if you want. I'm sure, he replied, his voice calm and certain. The best part of SeaWorld wasn't the VIP stuff, even though that was amazing. It was being with people who wanted me there. That's what I want for my birthday, too. We held the party at a park with a lake view. Derek brought Emma, who'd made Lucas a hand-drawn card featuring dolphins and orcas. Mrs. Patterson came with Tyler, who brought his Nintendo Switch so he and Lucas could play together. Vanessa arrived with Brittany and Chase, who'd pooled their allowance to buy Lucas a beginner's marine biology textbook they'd special ordered. Michelle video called from Seattle so her kids could wish Lucas happy birthday remotely. Brandon had sent a care package earlier in the week, a collection of marine conservation articles and a handwritten letter about their SeaWorld adventure. Watching Lucas blow out candles, surrounded by this group of people, I understood something fundamental. Wealth isn't measured in bank accounts or VIP experiences. It's measured in relationships, in people who show up, in moments that matter. Vanessa helped clean up after the party, working alongside me. He's really happy, she observed, watching Lucas and Tyler chase a stray ball. Just genuinely happy with simple things. He learned early that happiness doesn't come from stuff. It comes from feeling valued. I'm still learning that lesson, she admitted. The divorce is forcing me to reevaluate everything. Trevor's attorney is arguing I should get less support because I married into wealth rather than earning it myself. Turns out all those things I thought made me superior were just borrowed status. You're more than your marriage, I told her softly. I'm trying to believe that. The twins and I are moving to a smaller place next month. Downsizing significantly. I won't lie, it's terrifying, but also kind of freeing. Like maybe we'll figure out who we actually are without all the expensive distractions. We loaded the last bag into my car, and she hugged me unexpectedly, a tight embrace. Thank you for not giving up on me completely. I didn't deserve your patience. We're family, I said simply. That means something. Summer brought changes for everyone. Vanessa's divorce finalized, leaving her with a modest settlement and primary custody of the twins. She'd started working as a marketing consultant, a career she pursued before Trevor. The twins adjusted to their new circumstances with surprising resilience, particularly after Brittany started volunteering at the same animal shelter where Lucas worked. Lucas's paper route expanded to 73 houses. He'd become a fixture in the neighborhood, the reliable kid who brought your news, rain or shine. Tips increased, and he'd started getting requests for additional services, collecting mail during vacations, watering plants, taking in packages. I'm basically running a small business, he told me proudly. Mr. Harrison asked if I'd be interested in mowing lawns, too, but I said I need to focus on my current commitments. 11 years old, and he understood business capacity. My kid amazed me constantly. In August, Raymond had a health scare, a mild heart attack that landed him in the hospital. The family gathered, tensions temporarily forgotten in the face of potential loss. Dad recovered well, but the incident reminded everyone how fragile life could be. Sitting in the waiting room, Vanessa said quietly, I keep thinking about all the time I wasted being angry at you over SeaWorld. Dad could have died, and I would have spent his last months not speaking to my sister over something so stupid. It wasn't stupid to you at the time, I offered gently. It was always stupid, she insisted. I just couldn't see past my own ego. Mom, overhearing this, looked between us with an expression I couldn't quite read. Later, she pulled me aside. I owe you an apology, too, she said. I dismissed your feelings about Vanessa excluding Lucas. I prioritized keeping peace over addressing real hurt. That was wrong. I appreciate you saying that. Your father told me I was being blind to the favoritism I'd shown Vanessa for years. I didn't want to hear it, but he was right. I'm trying to do better. These weren't perfect reconciliations. Years of patterns don't disappear with a few conversations, but they were genuine attempts at change, and that mattered. Fall brought an unexpected invitation. SeaWorld San Diego contacted me directly. Amanda, our tour guide, had apparently mentioned our group in a staff meeting about meaningful guest interactions. The marketing department wanted to feature Lucas in a campaign about young people passionate about marine conservation. They're offering compensation, I explained to Lucas, showing him the email. And they donate to a marine conservation charity of your choice. But it would involve some interviews and possibly filming. You don't have to say yes. He read the email carefully, his face serious. Would this help with ocean conservation? It could raise awareness. Yes. Then I want to do it. The filming happened in October, a quick trip back to San Diego. SeaWorld flew us out coach this time, which felt appropriate, and put us up in a regular hotel. Lucas spent 2 days being interviewed, filmed feeding sea lions, and recorded segments about the importance of protecting marine habitats. Vanessa's twins asked if they could come along, and I agreed. Watching Brittany and Chase engage with the conservation messaging, seeing them actually listen and learn instead of performing for social media, showed how much they'd changed. The campaign launched in December, featuring Lucas alongside several other young conservationists from around the country. His segment focused on how one transformative experience had sparked a lasting passion, how accessibility to marine education could create the next generation of scientists and advocates. I used to think places like this were just for rich people, Lucas said in his interview portion. But they're really for anyone who cares about protecting our oceans. That's something everyone can be part of, no matter where you come from. The video went moderately viral, shared by conservation organizations and education advocates. Lucas handled the attention with characteristic humility, redirecting people toward actual marine biologists and researchers worth following. Vanessa texted after seeing the campaign, "You raised an incredible human. I hope you know that." "I'm aware," I wrote back, smiling. Christmas that year felt different from the previous one. Our family gathering included Derek and Emma, Michelle and her kids who flew in from Seattle, Mrs. Patterson and Tyler. This group had become our extended, chosen family. People bound not by blood, but by shared experiences and genuine care. Lucas organized a gift exchange with a twist. Everyone brought donations to local charities instead of personal gifts. He'd researched organizations supporting various causes and created a list for people to choose from. The twins contributed their allowance to an ocean conservation fund. Emma's donation went to a grief counseling center for children. Tyler chose a literacy program. This was Lucas's idea. Mom asked, watching him explain each charity to the younger kids. Completely his initiative, I confirmed. He's quite something, she paused, then added carefully. You did this. You raised him to care about things that matter. I just tried not to mess him up badly. You did more than that. You showed him his worth when the rest of us failed to. That SeaWorld trip, I understand now, it wasn't about spite or showing off. It was about showing him he deserved good things. Looking around the room at this complicated, imperfect, genuine gathering of people, all hooked up and changed by one decision to choose love over exclusion, I felt something settle deep in my chest. Lucas caught my eye from across the room and smiled, holding up a sea turtle ornament someone had given him. Happy, confident, secure in his place in the world. That, I thought, was worth everything. The money, the planning, the family drama, the difficult conversations, all of it had led to this moment where my son knew, without question, that he belonged. Not because of what he owned or how he looked or who his relatives were, but because of who he was. A kid who delivered newspapers at dawn, saved his money for meaningful goals, cared about marine conservation, and treated people with kindness. Vanessa approached, holding 2 cups of eggnog. She handed me one and stood beside me, watching the kids play. Thank you, she said quietly. For what? For not letting me ruin Lucas with my toxicity. For protecting him when I was trying to teach my kids he wasn't good enough. For being strong enough to fight back. I wasn't fighting you, I corrected her softly. I was fighting for him. I know, she murmured, her gaze fixed on the laughing children. That's what makes it matter. We stood together in silence, two sisters who'd taken very different paths to this moment of understanding. The journey hadn't been easy, and we'd probably stumble again in the future. Families always do. But watching Lucas laugh with his cousins, seeing how my expensive, possibly excessive response to cruelty had created ripples of positive change for multiple families, I knew I'd make the same choice again. Sometimes love looks like a $25,000 VIP experience. Sometimes it looks like a simple park birthday party. Sometimes it looks like setting boundaries and refusing to accept less than treatment. Always, it looks like showing up for the people who matter and teaching them their worth is inherent, not earned through performance or status or approval from others. Lucas would carry that lesson forward. So would Brittany and Chase, Emma, Tyler, Brandon, and Sophia. They'd all learned that belonging isn't about fitting into someone else's narrow definition of acceptable. It's about finding your people, the ones who celebrate you exactly as you are. And that, ultimately, was the real victory. Not making Vanessa feel bad, but making sure Lucas felt good, secure, valued, loved. Everything else was just details. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where defining and defending your boundaries with family became a battle for your child's sense of self-worth? How did you navigate those complex dynamics, and what lasting impact did it have?